Here we are at the end of Lent, at the beginning of the holiest few days for Christianity, at least according to the church calendar. But what about our calendar, our human calendar? What about the year of 2020 so far? I saw a great meme this week that said 2020 is a very unusual leap year. February had 29 days, March had 300 days, and April never ends. One of my favorite movies is Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, where he gets stuck in some kind of time loop, and every morning he wakes up and relives the same day over and over again. Well, I saw this great meme too this week. It's quarantine time again. It seems like we have been approaching or living through one Good Friday after another these past few weeks. We are definitely in a Good Friday frame of mind. And the crucifixion of Jesus is such a key part of Christianity that the story of Jesus' crucifixion, it is told at length in all four of the Gospels. Yet, as is often the case, each Gospel tells the story in its own way with a particular focus on certain details and themes. I chose this morning to read from the Gospel of Luke, because of the details that it contains regarding the two men who are crucified on either side of Jesus. And I say men instead of criminals because if you are strictly looking at it from a legal perspective, according to the Romans who carried out the crucifixions of all three men, Jesus would be included amongst the criminals. The first man speaks to Jesus with bitter sarcasm. Are you not the Christ? Are you not the Messiah? If so, save yourself and us. And his words betray a terrible misunderstanding. When he tells Jesus, save yourself and us, he's talking about salvation from the physical agony of crucifixion, from their impending death. But what this man doesn't understand, that it's precisely by Jesus staying on the cross, that not saving himself, it is through that Jesus is actually able to save others from God's judgment, a fate which is far worse than physical death. Saving himself is the one thing that Jesus must not do. Instead, he must surrender himself. He must bear God's wrath if we are to avoid it. His death doesn't call into question his claim to be the Messiah. Instead, it actually proves it. And the second man rebukes the first. He points out that all three of us are the same. Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? They have all been condemned by Rome to death. But there is a crucial difference. The criminals perhaps deserve to die for the deeds they have committed, while Jesus doesn't. This man has done no wrong. So even though Jesus is suffering the same Roman judgment, the same physical pain as the criminals, he is the sinless one who does not deserve it. And finally, Jesus speaks. The second criminal has said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus replies, truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. Jesus decides who goes to heaven. He decides who is forgiven and who is not. And it turns out to be very good news for this man that Jesus is indeed so different from him and from us. I see the two men as representing the opposite sides of our own humanity. The choices that we make in our lives, choices that are usually not as stark or as immediate as those faced by the two men on the crosses on either side of Jesus. But the choices that we face day in and day out, they are significant nonetheless. Do we believe in Jesus and the kingdom values of love and grace and mercy, or do we not? And more importantly, is our belief in these values, is that translated into our actions? We are faced with decisions every day in these difficult times around us. Decisions that affect us, decisions that affect those immediately around us, and decisions that actually affect our entire country and our world. In that moment on the cross, hanging beside Jesus, the second man gave outer voice to what that little voice in his head was telling him, that Jesus was indeed the Son of God. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And what Jesus did next was a wonderful example of understanding, acceptance, love, and compassion, all wrapped up into one final conclusive act. It is the epitome of the life of Jesus, that strength through adversity that he shows. Because without hesitation, Jesus responds to this plea of mercy, saying, I tell you the truth, today you will be with me in paradise. Jesus never strayed up even until that last moment from his objective, which was to teach us, to teach the world about unconditional love and acceptance towards each other. His death is a testimony that salvation is a reality for all of us when we voice our faith in word and deed. Jesus gives us a lesson, a final lesson in forgiveness while he hangs there upon the cross, suffering for us, dying for us. We can learn from these men about what our choices mean. We can choose to humbly ask, Jesus, remember me. Amen. Our hymn is Jesus, Remember Me. It is from the Taizé worship community, where most of the music is short and repetitive, and it's designed to give a space for contemplation. As the hymn is playing, I invite you to sing along if you want, but to also leave room for your spirit to think upon Jesus' conversation with these two men.